if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome to the Oak Road Hatter podcast following yesterday's 3-2 defeat to Aston Villa. Proved to be another chaotic event at Kenilworth Road. 5 goals. It's becoming quite the norm to see that many goals at our home this season. Helping me dissect that, I've got Jamie Castle and the return of Steve Moore, who will also be helping us with talking about the upcoming Luton Town Disabled Supporters Association general meeting. Steve, I'll start with you. How are you?
I'm okay. Still trying to recover from yesterday, but yeah, still not too bad other than that.
Yep, it's difficult at the moment. A difficult position to be in because I think we've all mentioned how impressed and proud we are of the performances, but it hasn't translated into points. Jamie, how are you?
Yeah, pretty much the same as Steve. Had almost 24 hours to process yesterday. Wasn't happy yesterday at all. But yeah, just process the goings on, and I'm sure we'll dissect in greater detail, which I'm looking forward to.
And Steve, as we've mentioned, it was another thriller at Kenilworth Road. You can always guarantee goals at Luton games in general, but when it's at Kenilworth Road, it seems to be the ante is upped somewhat. It was another very, very good game where we can take a lot of positives, but ultimately, and probably where we should start with, it was a very slow first half. We were 2-0 down again, which is becoming a little bit of a theme.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it starts from the fact that Bell even started the game. It tells you how desperate he was to have those 3 centre-halves fit. So, I mean, have them playing because we've run out of people there. I mean, I've discussed it. I mean, obviously, I've done the rounds on these podcasts to advertise the LTDSA, and obviously we'll come to that later. But I think I mentioned it before on one of the other podcasts that he's just so desperate to have these players fit because we've run out of centre-halves. Because of how quickly we've risen up the leagues, we don't have a youth team to speak of the right level. So there isn't those backup players. So once Bell went down, he was always scrambling. And he made the wrong decision now. I think rightfully say in hindsight he made the right decision. But I understand the reasons for him making it. I mean, I've talked about the fact half the reason I think he's playing this crazy style is he doesn't trust any of the centre-halves we've got left to be the organiser. So we can't really play a low block, which means we have to go man for man. And because they're all quick, we might as well go really high man for man and turn that into a plus in some ways. And therefore, he obviously didn't trust JJ at centre-half for very long on Tuesday night and moved Doughty there, and that worked better, mainly to protect JJ, who obviously was then held missing from the squad yesterday anyway. So I think he felt that was the way he had to go because Hashioka's only been in the country, a month? I don't know the level of his English. And he's not naturally a centre-half from what we've heard. He's much more of a wing-back and he looked much more of that Tuesday night, so it wasn't something you would necessarily have considered. So you're out of options there. what else could he have realistically done? And it looked awful, let's be honest. It looked like we were going to get fundamentally battered, but actually, when you break it down, the 2 goals were nothing to do with that. And we, in that sense, it was individual errors that have forced us to be 2-0 down by half time, even though we deserve to be comfortably worse than that.
Yeah, Jamie, as we say, low in availability, and that really transferred across to the pitch. We looked low in confidence, I think, in the early stages, and as Steve rightly mentions, Amari Bell's injury just made things worse.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's obvious to say Edwards has a lot of credit in the bank, but I think he made a couple of fundamental errors in judgment yesterday. I think I completely get what he means in terms of like the next game is the biggest game, but fundamentally the 3 games coming up are huge, and I would rather have lost the game yesterday 4-0 and just protected Bell for the game against Palace and go from there. Just because he's such a vital player for us in terms of not only is he a left footer, but defensively he suits that back 3 really well. So to hopefully not lose him for a while, but it seems like we might is really tough to take. But Hashi came in with the second half and was very good. I think the error in judgment number 2 was putting Doughty there after Bell coming off. As much as you risk Bell in terms of risking him and hoping he comes through, to then put Doughty there and put Chio on the left, I think is it's just tough. I noticed in the second half of home to City in the Cup, they exploited that left channel quite a bit. And I know it's City and Villa are not as good as City, but they're still a top 4 team. It was obvious that he wasn't going to really do too well in that back 3. Alfred Doughty fundamentally is one of the best attacking wing backs in the league statistically. So why you would just shoehorn him in at left centre half for me was a bit stupid personally. And then Hashi comes in, and I think ultimately if you sign a player in January, you sign him for a reason. So you just at some point you have to back him. And again, it's a big call to rest Bell and back Hashi from the start. But then I think when Bell comes off injured, you've not really got much choice. I think you just have to throw Hashi in and just see how he does. Because to put Doughty left centre half and Chio left wing back is suicidal at best. And just shout out to Mengi. I think he got us out of trouble a lot yesterday. So did the keeper. I thought he was amazing, Kaminsky. But Ted and Mengi, blimey, what a defender! He was matching Ollie Watkins in a foot race. Had some proper, unbelievable last ditch tackles and touch of the ball. And if it wasn't for Ted and Mengi, then that would have been 4 or 5 at half time.
And I think yesterday probably heightened how good Erling Haaland is, for him to have his way against Mengi so often and so brutally in some points. And for Mengi to return a performance like that against Ollie Watkins, who we all know is fantastic, and surprised, I think, a few yesterday with his physicality and his ability to battle, because it's his pace that earns the most plaudits, and it's his finishing ability that captures the attention the most. But his hold-up play, all round sort of general forward play was fantastic, and Mengi did match him as well. We'll go on to the second half, because at half-time I was struggling for any real positives or any. I didn't really envision a way back into the game. I thought Villa were fantastic, and I just didn't see how we were going to get ourselves back into the game. But it was a complete mindset switch around, and that transferred across to a complete different game played out in front of us. We'll go on to a few individuals in a bit, but collectively we just were on the front foot for the entire second half, and that probably backed up by expected goals. I think Villa's was very low, sort of 0.1, and ours was 1.7. Which I guess tells the full story, Steve.
Definitely. I thought the big thing, I would say, I agree that on Tuesday night, Doughty got made an absolute fool of. But I don't think him playing centre half from a defensive point of view, actually, in terms of errors from him, was an issue in the first half. But what that change did yesterday was more create a situation where Kabore and Ogbeni linked up really well down that right-hand side. They were absolute. Obviously, it helped. Obviously, having Doughty further forward will always help because he is an attacking player. But the combination between Kabore and Ogbeni on the right-hand side was the thing that really did actually change the game for me, because they could not deal with that down their left-hand side at all for the entirety of the rest of the game. It completely took Leon Bay out of the game as a threat because they were more worried the other way with him. And I say that's someone that has liked Kabore at right wing back because I'm not entirely sure of his end product being good enough to play further forward. But I mean, as a link up between the two, that really worked. And yes, I think it is harsh to compare it with Doughty down the other side because, yeah, Kabore and Ogbeni's deliveries can be lacking at times. But if the link-up's going to work like that on a regular basis, that's something we have to commit to potentially being how we start down the right-hand side on a regular basis, because if that can do that to Aston Villa, I can't see too many teams we've got left, at home certainly, who can deal with that particularly well. I mean, we look at our next game, Crystal Palace, and if that can turn Eze into a defensive threat because he's worried about us coming down their left-hand side, that would be more huge than anything actually Kabore and Ogbeni can deliver in the box themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And Jamie, that second half, again, we've seen it so often this season where it's typically in between games where we respond well after disappointment. It's something we bang on about all the time. But again, that was a perfect example of bouncing back after disappointment and confidence seeming low, luck not really being on our side when you think of the VAR call. But to go out and really pin Aston Villa back in the way and in the manner we did, that again is a massive positive.
Yeah, it's a massive positive, as you say. I think conversely adds to the frustration a little bit because in that, I guess that bubble of 40 minutes, we just showed how good a side we can be, and if we were consistent, and it's a big if, I know that. But if we were consistent, we wouldn't even be in the shout. I think for the bottom three, I think we'd be clear of it. So that is frustrating. But no, second half, Bartley and Clark are looking like they're forming a good partnership. I think there was a lot of people said in the first half that they were exposed, which I think they were. I think the defensive shape didn't help with Doughty at left centre half, but they were getting through the midfield too easily. But second half, Clicker and Barkley were animals. I thought they were chasing down John McGinn, who again doesn't get enough credit for Villa at times. So the them two midfield were really good. Before the change, I think it was fair what Steve said with regards to the Kabore and Chio partnership on the right. I think one of the issues was previously it was Kabore and Townsend that was lacking a little bit, whereas on our left we had Doughty, Chio and Chong, and sort of those three. You've got all your best attacking players out on one side, and Villa just know where to defend. As long as we could, as long as they could defend our left channel, that they knew they would have next to no issues on our right. So just by basically putting one of those sort of exciting attackers on the other side, that made them have more to think about. So yeah, I think that second half was excellent, and if we can replicate that across the games, as Steve said, against Forest, Everton, Brentford at home, they're absolutely huge games that we have coming up. Then there's no reason why we can't win all of them. And suddenly, if you win 3 or 4 of those absolute winnable games, then you're out of it because you're on 32 points before you even taken into account the other points that we can get elsewhere, and the -6 points deductions hopefully coming Forest's way. So yeah, lots to be proud about still. I know some of my tweets would have come across as a bit sort of depressed, but it was just sort of in the moment you're just a bit frustrated given what happened at the end, which we'll come on to. But yeah, lots to be positive about, and going into a massive game away at Palace, and then Forest at home. Obviously, we've got Bournemouth away first, then Forest at home. yeah, probably the biggest 3-game stint of the season so far.
You have to say that's going to be a massive week starting from Saturday. Let's take a look at a few individual performances. And Steve, we'll start with Hashioka, who we've mentioned already a little bit in the previous section. Looked very comfortable at left side of centre back. Of course, when he arrived at the club, right wing back, right back is what we knew of him. I think that he had played as a right sided centre back, so naturally there was potential for him to operate as part of a back three. But to come into a game as difficult as it was at the time when he did come on, to return a performance like that, show the versatility displayed, and I just think generally the effort, desire, all the sort of the everything outside the technical side of the game, he showed in abundance. That's not to say technically he didn't impress, but he just showed a lot of grit and determination out of possession, real leadership as well. I thought. How impressed were you with Hashioka? And you look at the next few games and you potentially factor in that Bell might not be available. How important is it that another player has stepped up to that centre back position?
I think it's huge. I mean, we've talked about the lack of people we've got to play centre half, which to an element is what I believe is why he started playing this very aggressive system, because that's, as I mentioned, that's, I think, trying to suit the attributes that the centre halves we got left have got. And the big thing is not only how well he did playing obviously out of position, he played in a way that made me feel that he could fit stylistically in how we're trying to defend, as in man to man, aggressive, and saying, okay, our centre backs are good enough doing a physical tussle and they're quick enough with recovery pace to run with almost anybody. He fits that. Obviously, there's bits of his game where he looked a little bit uncomfortable naturally at centre half. And obviously, as we mentioned, we don't know. Yes, he's had enough to do in an interview. We don't know his level of English. We don't know his level of comfort in living with the country, even. This is not something as a football club that we've had a huge amount of experience with. I mean, this, quite frankly, the last two foreign players we've signed from outside of the country are Simon Skuga, and you're probably then going back to Yuri Vawa. So how long ago it was. There's no question we don't have to put. I can't imagine we've got experience, even if we've got people in the player support liaison roles. They've got the experience to deal with overseas players coming here. So it's going to be a huge change of things for him. But he looks like he's dealing with everything very, very well.
We're going to take a short break, but when we're back, we'll look at another couple of player performances, and then we'll end on Steve's sort of his update on Luton Town Disabled Supporters Association, and he will also talk about the general meeting coming up. We are back for the second part of today's episode. And we're also back with Steve, who had some technical issues, as you may have seen or heard right then. But you're back, Steve.
Yeah, I thought someone would have set fireworks straight for our Wi-Fi connection somehow. I don't know.
Well, it's good that you're back, and I'll come straight back to you with Carlton Morris, who scored, and you know, I don't know if he'll actually get the assist, but when you watch the first goal back, it was, because obviously he scored the second. He done fantastically well to get the ball into Chong's path. Again, true grit and desire to keep that ball alive. Wanted it more, and that was ultimately how we got ourselves back into the game. I've been really, really impressed by Carlton Morris fairly recently, because Elijah Adebayo has taken a lot of plaudits outside of Luton, given his general goal scoring ability and pressing ability and all of that. But Carlton Morris, I think, has been really gone under the radar in terms of his continued involvement of us progressing up the pitch, and obviously in those moments as well in front of goal, he has been delivering. What did you think of his performance yesterday?
I mean, I thought he was excellent again when he had the opportunity to be. I mean, I think you mentioned it. I think he really did struggle at the start of the season. Firstly, obviously, because when we were playing such a low block that we were trying to play in a lot of games early on in the season, he just wasn't seeing the ball. But even after change of formation, he's not got the physical attributes that scare Premier League centre halves in the way Adebayo has managed to scare Premier League centre halves. Since he's come back into the side, firstly playing almost an inside left channel, which he probably his last played when he was playing for Shrewsbury Town on loan under Paul Hurst when he first played senior football regularly and was excellent there in that Shrewsbury side that should have made the second tier, really. He's looked excellent there in support of Adebayo, and then as he's been needed, obviously, since Adebayo's gone out, he's continued to play there a little bit, and then obviously has played up front through the middle, and obviously he still doesn't scare centre halves in the same way that Adebayo does, but he's just receiving more ball to do the more technical things he's capable of doing because everyone's so much closer to him, which is the advantage of this crazy style we're now playing, is that it means our central midfielders and obviously the wide players are much, much closer to Morris than they were at the start of the season, which is allowing him to show the attributes that he showed us all last season, really. And and obviously helped by the confidence of how well he played when he come into the side, and he's just showing that through the middle now.
And Jamie, with Carlton Morris, it's always the intelligence with me, with how he plays. As Steve mentioned, it's benefited him having players in closer proximity to him because he combines very well. But he also uses his body very well to protect the ball. As Steve said, again, Adebayo has the power, the strength, has all the physical attributes to cause harm. Carlton Morris, still strong, still a strong hold-up kind of player, but he uses his body very, very well to give as much distance as possible so he can protect the ball. He's just a very intelligent player that is massively benefiting from having runners sort of going in behind, but also having someone like Barkley and then Jordan Clark who like to join the attacks.
Yeah, I think his performances have been almost chalk and cheese really in terms of before he was taken out for a few games and since he's come back he's been the centre forward that I think we needed in that first part of the season. He's definitely learnt from the struggles that he probably had early in the season, and he's now he's a lot better. He's showing what he did for us in the Championship, clearly at a much higher level, and he can do almost everything for us. He gives us that flexibility to go into feet or to go long up to a big front man, and obviously especially alongside Elijah, it gives us even more directness ability in terms of going into them early. But he's the centre forward that we need right now. Clearly with Eli's a big miss, but with Carlton Morris, we definitely can get by, especially with the sort of the wide players around him. I think having like a Chong and, as you say, a Clark behind, being able to sort of link up with him and become closer. He was definitely isolated. I think early on in the season, we were playing that sort of 3-4-3 with two wide forwards. They were too wide, and there definitely has been that bit of a tactical switch, and he's showing the benefits from it, and he deserved that goal yesterday. I think obviously previously most of his goals have been penalties, and whilst the goal was still a set piece, I mean it was reminiscent of his goal at Goodison Park early in the season, almost a carbon copy really. So yeah, it's good that he's getting goals outside of penalties, and he now deserves to get that open play goal. I think if he can add those to his game, then he would be a proper Premier League striker. So we definitely need a bit more from him. I think he still has that extra level to go, which I hope he can show between now and sort of May 19th. But I have every faith that he can do, especially when we get players like Elijah back fit.
And Jamie, I'll stick with you when I come to Issa Kabore, because it was his first start in a couple of months at least, I think. Looking back at it, and for 88 minutes, it was a very good performance. He was confirmed as man of the match. Um, we were speaking. I know Steve mentioned it. His link-up play with Ogbene was massive in us progressing up the pitch and causing a lot of harm going forward. But it was him that was caught napping for that Villa goal. A really disappointing end to the game on a personal level for him, but also given what it means for us in our relegation battle. What did you make of his performance?
For me, I thought he was okay. I think he certainly wasn't bad. But for me, I was probably a bit shocked that he got man of the match. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think he was in our top three players. When you look at sort of Jordan Clark, the way he played, or I mean, I think Chong first half wasn't the best, but I thought he was amazing second half. And I thought other players probably gave more. So I was a bit shocked. And I think people have mentioned attacking ability and not to regurgitate stuff that I've put out on socials myself, but he lacks the end product. And okay, he might be able to dribble forward, and okay, he got the yellow card for Moreno, so he definitely did add some value there. But that was only with Chio alongside him. So how much do you give credit to Issa, or do you give credit to Chio as well for sort of giving him that impetus? Because I think with Townsend, they were both just a bit blunt, really. That they didn't really make too many forward runs. And then defensively, it's just it hurts. I think because it's the same mistake again. Clearly, the Liverpool one is the obvious one, but he's made a few other defensive mistakes as well. And even if he was brilliant going forward and had 5 or 6 assists to his name, you'd still be thinking, well, you need to cut those mistakes out, because you've cost us 2 points against Liverpool and a point against Villa. That's 3 points in 2 actions that have gone down the drain. And I think it's as simple as that. If you look at Chio or Brenner there, people are saying, well, Issa's better defensively than Chio. I disagree. I mean, I think first half against Liverpool, Chio defensively was excellent in that first half. I mean, in that away end, he was down in that corner a little bit, and he was defending Liverpool's attacking strengths really well. Okay, the second half happened, but I think that would have happened to most teams, not just Chio or Brenner at wing back. So for me, I think Issa isn't any better than Chio defensively. So for me, if I was to say who do I want to start in longer term at wing back, I'd put Chio. And now, okay, fine, people say, well, Chio should be in the front three, which I do agree. I think Chio should be in that front three. So then who do you put there? And I think Hashi showed us enough that you give him a go. And even as far as a longer term picture, Hashi's our player. Issa isn't. Issa will go back to Man City in May. Will we get him on a permanent? I don't think he's done enough this season for us to spend money on him permanently, if I'm being honest. So I would rather give Hashi 10 games this season at wing back and see what he can do. Because even if he's not as good going forward as Kabore has been, he's probably a damn sight better defensively, and he's shown that. I feel he played at left centre half against some very good players yesterday and defended really well. Was really composed. Took the ball under pressure, was really brave, had some touches in tight spaces, worked well with Doughty on the left and with Barkley in midfield. So defensively, I think he's almost that level above Issa. So yeah, it probably sounds a bit damning, and I don't think he was awful by any stretch, but I think it's time to, unless we need to play him due to injuries, probably time to just sort of bring him out in the 11 and go with the players that we know we're gonna have longer term.
Let's drag away from this game. And Steve, this is where you come in. This is the section now that we're going to talk about Luton Town Disabled Supporters Association. Of course, they've got their the annual general meeting on the 6th. So that's only a few days away now. Steve, first of all, just tell us a little bit about the Luton Town Disabled Supporters Association and the kind of role and involvement you have.
Yeah, well, the association has been going quite a few years now, and it's open to both anyone that has a disability or anyone who, for example, has family members who are fans and have a disability and want to help. And we've got a wide range of people with various disabilities. Someone who I know very well was the initial chairman. He had been chairman for a very long time. A guy called Richard Hill. I used to play disabled cricket with him, and he, unfortunately, because of his other work commitments, had to stand aside. And then we've had COVID as well, so that's taken a huge hit into what we've been able to do. But the upcoming year is going to be huge. We are an independent organisation, although our relationship with the club is very good. As you may have mentioned, the Andrew meeting will be at the football club. It will be in the John Moore Lounge on Wednesday, and we'll have people at both entrances. The Kenilworth Road end obviously being the disabled access entrance, and we still have a few spaces in the John Moore Lounge for people who want to come. And I'll send an email you need to get in contact with here. It's rsvp@ltdsa.co.uk, but I'm sure it'll be in the description underneath this, as will the Eventbrite, which is the Eventbrite link, which is the other way to get in contact with coming on the night. Where there is also a Teams link, so if you couldn't make it, or if you've missed out and the last few spaces, as I say this, have gone, you would have the ability to ask for the Teams link through either of those links and be on Microsoft Teams and listen to us on the night. And we have a question and answer section after the main business of the general meeting. That is myself interviewing Gary Sweet about disabled issues, both with the current ground and the future ground. I mean, he's given a presentation for us on disabled access at Power Court and how it's going to look. But that Teams link should be open for people to ask questions over there once I open it out to the floor. So even if you're on the Teams link, you can still be part of the meeting.
That's brilliant to hear, as you say. Of course, with Kenilworth Road being constructed in 1885, of course, disabled access has sort of long been an issue. Something that Power Court, of course, will cater for, I am sure. Jamie, just coming on to you, we've sort of seen in the last, say, couple of weeks some of the work that the Luton Town Disabled Support Association in conjunction with other organisations have done. You look to the TNT interview where Chio Ogbene and Rob Edwards were learning sign language. Also saw the hashtag Unite for Access training tops yesterday evening. It's great to see the club taking these steps, and I'm sure beyond this annual general meeting on Wednesday, there'll be even more steps.
Yeah, definitely, and I think as you say, it's been difficult in recent past. Obviously, there was sort of limited spaces at the front for wheelchairs in the Kenny, and that they seem to have thought about that when they did the work with the bobbers. So yeah, obviously it's good now. Obviously, with Premier League money, that we're able to be able to do more, because it's needed, it's necessary, it's the world we live in, and it's the world that we all should live in terms of catering to all. So I'm looking forward to seeing the plan to Power Court. So it would be good to hear about what they're looking at for the access at Power Court. And yeah, it's just also the exposure, and now you're in the Premier League, you need to, I guess, get with the times, and you're now in view of the world, so you just need to cater to all, and it's a good stage to sort of publicise the work that LTDSA do.
Exactly that. And Steve, Premier League status, Luton Town being in the Premier League, do you reckon that has had a positive effect in terms of, I guess, the ambitious plans that the Disabled Supporters Association have? Do you think being on sort of the centre stage, being on this main stage, certainly helps?
I mean, just it's like everything. Like the eyes of the world being on the club, as its positives and negatives. I've been able to do huge things. I mean, you've talked about the work in the Oak Road end. I think it's obviously it's not necessarily a help to us, but I think it's huge that disabled fans of the away clubs can be there's spaces in there for in the Oak Road for the away fans now. Because let's be honest, where they were before, which if you're a wheelchair away supporter, you were in front of G-Block, which let's be honest, of main stand, is not a place if you think as if you were a Luton fan in a wheelchair and haven't been in that situation, it's not good. So it's just stuff like that has been huge. I mean, Hatter's Vision is something we obviously did before the pandemic, so it's not like we've been unable to do things. I mean, the audio description service which Simon fronts is excellent. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of people who have other disabilities, but their sight is going anyway, who have picked up on that service, which is available every match day, who say, yes, they can still see very short range, but it has hugely enhanced their ability to enjoy the game when they know that they can't see areas of the pitch they couldn't see even 5 years ago, because as various elements of their disabilities, their sight is another thing that ends up going. So we're hugely excited. Obviously, like I say, we had huge plans, and that was before even I came on board, and COVID did knock them all for 6. So it's a huge couple of years for us to get back going, and the fact that we can, if anything, spotlight the fact that the Premier League has injected this amount of cash, although that there's lots of things, not only the new ground, that are extra outgoings for that cash, we've been able to help. And obviously, our relationship with other disabled supporters associations this season has been interesting, because obviously there are massive organisations at some of the bigger clubs who have fans who go home or away despite their disabilities, and that's great for them. But we've had to have chats with those and to say, listen, this is going to be harder than it should be, because unfortunately this is the situation that the Kenilworth Road presents for disabled supporters. And we are constantly in discussions with the football club in ways that we can help with that, things that we can do to improve those situations. And like I say, we're always open to people who want to come and join and help and give any extra experience to the organisation from our point of view to help us with that. I mean, I think some people who are members won't even know they're members, because if you're eligible for a disabled ticket and you buy a disabled ticket at Kenilworth Road, you're in any home end, you're automatically a member of the association, because you don't have to pay a fee to be a member of the LTDSA. That is done deliberately because we feel it's better to have it open house, and therefore we hopefully get more experienced people who are willing to help, because it opens things up for us like that. But obviously we've learned a lot as well, speaking to those organisations that are much bigger and obviously have been going on a much bigger scale for an awful long time because of the size of the football clubs they represent. So it's been a really interesting year this year, and it's hopefully going to springboard us for the future.
As you mentioned there, Steve, there's a lot of disabled supporters associations that are a lot larger than us, and us being Premier League means that relationships with those sort of Premier League clubs have probably been strengthened. Sort of ideas come about through speaking with members of, say Liverpool or sort of the massive clubs. As ideas stem down from there and stuff that you can take into Wednesday's meeting?
Well, there's some of the organisational things, I mean, that we've been able to lean on in terms of just procedures and trying to run an organisation. Obviously, we are trying to get officially recognised as a DSA with the Football Supporters Association, I think it is, the FSA, and then to officially recognise us. And there's a lot of things that we haven't been able to put in place yet that we've needed help from an organisational standpoint to be able to do, and hopefully by this AGM we'll be able to do that. Obviously, one of the things is to do with having people involved in the finances, but hopefully they'll be overlooked at because we deliberately go about not having any finances, as we've already mentioned. So organisational structures and little ideas that we've been able to have, that various members have had, will always be helpful. And they'll always strengthen the relationship between ourselves and the football club. Like I say, we are independent, but our relationship with the football club is reasonably good. So it's just every day is a learning experience this season, because it's say almost a bit like the football club itself, really. They're learning every day because of the level off the field, because of, I'm sure they are, because of the size of the organisations that are involved in running other foot clubs in the Premier League. And we're learning every day as a result of that off the field ourselves as well.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for coming on and sharing that with us today. As I think Steve mentioned earlier, we will make sure to add the Eventbrite description on to our description of this podcast. So make sure to check that out. And also, as Steve mentioned, you can join in from your own computer, phone, laptop, whatever. So make sure to check all of that out. As we say, a big thank you to you, Steve, and a big thank you to you, Jamie, for coming on. We will be back later in the week as we look ahead to the next game, Crystal Palace away. And it's a big one. It's a massive one. We could probably say that about all the games that are still to come, but it is the next one, so it's the most important one. Until then, it is goodbye from us.